We're live. I am the
Boom.
yeah. I am the industry. Louder than music. I'm Billy Smalls. Billy the Kid.
I love it. My Twitter handle is Miggy Smalls. So I'm Miguel. So you're Billy Smalls. I'm liking this already. I'm liking it.
I am the industry. Yes, louder than music. Definitely. I'm Billy Smalls. Let's talk about. That's really cool. Let's talk about the band here. Run With It is the band. You're the front.
Yep.
You're the vocalist, front man.
Yep. Front man, the guy who jumps around, sings a lot, and tries to play guitar. So that's kind of my role in the band. And right now we're not on the road together, so we're spread out a little bit. So I figured just kind of jump in, just on the interview and hanging out with you guys. So.
Okay, cool, definitely. I did have a question. So one of your favorite pastimes is horror movies.
Yes, I love horror movies, man.
What's your favorite horror movie?
I would say it's zombie horror. 28 Days Later is probably one of my favorite. Really, not even just in that genre, like of all movies. 28 Days Later, I think, is amazing. But it's funny, it's like my tastes in zombie movies, especially, are like I'll watch the worst zombie movie in the world and still like it. Like I'll even tell people like, no, it's you'll hate it, but I still liked it. I'm trying to think some of the other great ones. What's the one? Man, I'm blanking on the name right now. Oh man, I'm blanking. I'm trying to think of other ones, but yeah, 28 Days Later is the one that sticks out the most to me.
Yeah.
And I love post-apocalyptic movies as well. So the zombie movie is kind of the perfect thing where they combine horror and combine post-apocalyptic, like Walking Dead. I mean, it's like a religious experience for me every single Sunday. It's like, all right, this is happening. When we're on the road, I'm like, I wait till I get back home so I can watch with my wife. And that kills me because one time it was like weeks on end. I couldn't watch it because I was just waiting to get back home. And I'm like, I know what's happening. I can't check Facebook. I don't want to get any spoilers. I don't want to know if Rick dies. You know.
You don't watch it with D. Cole. You don't watch.
D. Cole loves it. But I told him I'm waiting till I watch it with my wife because she loves it too. She loves horror movies as well. But yeah, he's like, okay, I won't. He goes, how far are you? And I'll tell him the episode. He's like, all right, I won't talk to you then.
You're so lucky. Someone ruined it for me. I totally fell off of Walking Dead. I felt it got cheesy. And once I found out like the writers behind it were writers for Lost. Remember that television series, Lost?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it got so much, it got talked down so badly, like the writers were just going in circles and so on. I just stopped watching Walking Dead.
Yeah, there's a few seasons on Lost. It was like, come on, guys. And then the ending of Lost was horrible.
Everyone's confused. Like, it just led up to nothing.
Yeah, they're like, what the? I was like, what the hell just happened? I just invested so much of my life into this series, and you guys did that to me. But
I think you and I both are waiting for 28 months later, and hopefully that will come
28.
out.
Well, they had there was a sequel. I think it is 28 months later. It has Jeremy Renner in it. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I would definitely watch it.
It's okay. I like Jeremy Renner a lot as well. He's the dude who's he's in the Bourne movie, Bourne Legacy or whichever one Matt Damon wasn't in. But yeah, it's I think 28 months later is the name of it, and it takes place where they're trying to take back the city, and they've kind of set up quarantine sections, and it's pretty good. It's worth a viewing, but it can't compare to 28 Days Later. That movie is just it's up there, man.
I'm just like you. Like when you said that, I'll watch all the cheesy Sci-Fi Channel zombie movies. And I'm perfectly fine with it. I love every one of them. So,
well, like for example, I'm watching Z Nation right now, and it's horrible. But I'm watching every episode. Like it's bad. I'm even like seriously, but I can't stop watching it because it's a zombie movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. So let's talk about the music, because here's the reason I brought that up was because listening to your new EP is so hopeful and inspirational.
Yeah.
The song titles themselves, are just and they're encouraging. It almost reminds me of like kind of Christian genre music.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so seeing that, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit to see what you meant by horror movies, because this music is actually complete opposite.
You're like, what? You're watching this movie, but you're giving me this thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I am kind of an interesting person in that way, because I deal with depression, I deal with anxiety, OCD, like really for most of my life. I've been able to work past a lot of the OCD stuff to where, like, there was a season in my life I couldn't even have people touch me. I would like freak out. I could barely leave my room, kind of stuff. Luckily, I've kind of moved past that. The depression is still part of it. So it's like, there's days I battle with that. So out of that, I think I try in my writing, I'm actually kind of grasping for hope, grasping for something that can, I guess, lift me out of it and hopefully help lift others out of it. It's interesting though, because we're actually working on our next project. We got 9 demos laid out in the studio already, and looking to start actual recording by end of the summer. And some of that's even is taking a little darker tint. Our producer, as we get to know each other, he's like, you know, it might be good for you to dive even deeper into some of those things, because it might help other people to understand that, like, not just the bright side of it, but what does it look like when you're actually in that darkness? You know, so yeah, it's I guess in that sense, I'm kind of a complicated dude. I would say there's definitely Christian overtones in the music that we do. My history is I used to be a pastor back in the day, but now it's a really long story, but I'm actually an atheist now. But when you spend 20 years in the church, 10 of those years I was a paid pastor, I think those overtones are just kind of in my head rattling around, and it's how I communicate through. And honestly, the next album, we actually dive deeper into those ideas too, where one of the songs, they dubbed it Atheist Club Jams, is what what they called it, as a joke in the studio as we were working. So yeah, well, the next project will kind of be diving into it. If you think of it, we're talking about TV shows. It's kind of like this EP was kind of like the pilot for us, where the next project we're envisioning it as like season 1, and really diving into the stories deeper of who we are and how we're observing the world, is kind of how we're looking at it, if you will. So yeah.
That's interesting. Wow. That's, I mean, I did get the kind of, you know, darker feel to the EP, the opening track actually kind of had a darker feel out of all of them. I Need a Light.
Yeah, that was the one where we felt all that angst in there. And actually, I think it's I Need a Light that's inspired the direction. Like, I Need a Light's probably more of the direction we're going as far as sound and intensity. In fact, some of the influences we threw out as we're working on this next album is 9 Inch Nails is one of the bands we kept referencing in the studio. We're going to like some heavier industrial beats. And Muse as well is another influence that's kind of pouring into this next project as we move forward. So yeah, but we're excited about the EP. It's been, you know, it's been a long year of just getting it out. We started recording about a year ago, just over a year ago for that project, promoted it for about 6 months, and it launched at number 66 on the iTunes alternative charts. And so for us, that was a big deal. We'd never touched a chart before, and our producer texts us. He says, "Hey, you guys should wake up on the release day," and he sent us a screenshot of number 66 on the iTunes charts, and we're like, "What?" And there's like Rage Against the Machine and Radiohead, and we're like sitting right in there. We're like, "Shut up!" So it lasted throughout kind of the weekend, and then it has dropped off the charts, unfortunately, but. People are still sharing it and everything, especially the Spotify stuff. So.
Nice. I could see that because it has such great sound quality. It's very professional. You know,
Thank you, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't get the amateuristic tone in there. It sounds like you guys know what you're doing. Been doing it for some time.
That was. Well, the producer we worked with on that, he's working on our next project as well. I sent him about 60 songs that I wrote, and I said, sift it down, pick the best, like top 5. And we ended up picking 6 out of the 60 songs. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I said, ultimately, I want a gold record. I don't think it's going to be this album just because we're just getting started, and it takes a long time to build that. But really, what that means is one day we're trying to be on the trajectory where one day we can sell 500,000 units of our music, because we know that's how many people are actually listening. For us, that would be amazing. So we wanted to swing for the fences. I'm glad it came across that way.
You definitely did. It sounds, if anyone is even not a fan of that genre, just to listen to it for the sound quality. It's definitely clear, crisp. That's awesome. Kind of brings you in. So I did get that out of it. Now, how did this form? I mean, Kansas City historically is like a jazz kind of place historically, right?
Yeah. Well, it's go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just wondering, you guys have this kind of pop rock feel. How did you guys come together out of that kind of history?
Well, it's funny you say that, because we've been together as a band for about 5 years. And we started as a soul funk rock group. We had it was a 5-piece group. There's this guy named Derek Cunningham who was part of the band, and he was a big part of the soul and the funk. This dude is amazing piano player, and he just kind of has that vibe. In fact, he went on to start his own project called Soul Revival, and it's just straight up soul. And he's doing great. He's actually he got #1 on a indie soul chart recently, and is just doing great with that project. But we realized, like, him and I just kind of kept butting heads creatively. We were good friends, but like creatively, he's like, he wanted more chill soul, and I wanted to like jump around and go crazy. Yeah. So we just realized, hey, maybe you should go do your thing. I'll do my thing. And that's where things started growing for us, where it was kind of this internal, find yourself kind of moment of like, who am I really as a writer? And then as a band, who are we? And that's where it kind of morphed as people started shifting in and out of the band. So, and now we're, like I said, this alternative rock, Imagine Dragons, Ex Ambassadors, Missio, those kind of bands have been the ones that has, I guess, influenced this EP. And that's still an influence of where we're going. But like I said, we're even starting to look to bands like 9 Inch Nails or Muse, even for some inspiration as we go. So not to recreate it, but again, kind of informing our process.
I mean, you guys had a really successful start. You guys performed in Qatar recently at an Air Force base.
Yeah, this fall we flew over. They flew us out for the military, flew into Amsterdam, and then took another flight into Qatar and got to play for the soldiers out there. We spent about 3 days hanging out with the soldiers. We just went on site to the soldiers who couldn't get to the concert. We went to the K9 unit. I got attacked by a dog. If you guys want to, they let me put the suit on. They're like, who wants to do it? And I was like, I do. Signed up. And me and the bass player at the time, they let the dogs attack. It was insane. If you guys want to see it somewhere on our Instagram or something, at Run With The Band, if you just scroll back to like the fall. Yeah, we got to hang out with the EOD. Those guys were amazing. And they were crazy. They were like, yeah, you guys have probably noticed we're a little crazier than everybody else. It's like they dismantle bombs all day. Like that's their job. Oh my God. And so you got to imagine, that's what they were saying. They're like, we got to have fun because all day we're doing things that could potentially kill us and everyone else around us, So it was amazing to meet them, to play for them. We're hoping to get back out that direction eventually. I would love to hit the whole UAE. They got Dubai, Jordan, all that. But yeah, one of our goals was to tour internationally, and so that was a nice start of it. But we didn't count it as a tour because it was only one show, and that's not a real tour. So we're like, okay, this is a start, but we haven't reached our goal yet. Yeah. So we're going to keep working on that, definitely.
Cool. How did that come together? Like, I mean, you guys just started. Who said, hey, these guys would be perfect to perform for these soldiers? How did that come together?
Well, it was probably like 80% one fan, and probably 20% social media. So social media is a big thing for us too. But it was funny. I was out going to a bunch of different bars with my wife one night and some friends. The bass player we had at the time was having a fundraiser at a bar. So I said, hey, why don't we stop in? We weren't even supposed to be there. Sorry, there's an alarm going on. But we weren't even supposed to be at this club. He was doing his own fundraiser, his own thing. Well, when I showed up, they said, why don't you guys jump up and play some songs? And so we did. We played some of what Run With It was. And some guy that night happened to really like us, and he followed us online, kept up with us. And no joke, 1.5 years later, he got stationed in Qatar, and I guess he was a master sergeant, so he's pretty high up. And they asked him, who do you want to come out? And he said, run with it. So the company that books it, they went and checked us out and then sent us an email while we were in Nashville recording this EP we just released. I thought it was a joke because as a band, you get so many emails. They're like, hey, I got this, and I'm going to help you be famous, or I'm going to help you get 100,000 downloads or something. And you're always like, right. So I went and did a bunch of research on them, found out they were legit, got our passports scanned, and next thing you know, we're in between. We did like 3 East Coast tours and a South tour, and in between that, ended up flying to Qatar, which was, man, that was a great milestone. Definitely was.
Yeah, just as a starting band, that's quite amazing. You know, I mean,
yeah, it was a nice way to get going. We feel pretty, even though we're 5 years in, we feel pretty young as far as a band goes. You know, a lot of our friends have been going longer. A lot of bands that are really getting traction are somewhere around year 10. And so to accomplish that at what was year 4 for us, was fun. That was very fun, but it was cool. If it wasn't for that one fan, everyone says you need that one fan, and it really was. It was a random club, that one guy, and he stayed in contact by watching us on social media, and boom, there we go. It was cool.
That's amazing. You seem like you guys are off to a good start. I mean, you know, a lot of people struggle as indie artists with just getting the sound together, getting their style together, and it's just.
Yeah, it's a tough game. It's so tough, you know.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, if you know, what are some of the challenges you face as an indie band?
You know, the challenge as an indie band, that's a good question, actually. I just think I feel like a lot of days all I'm doing is swimming through challenges. For me personally, I'm a father of 4. I have 4 boys. Wow. So it's a little more personal, but the challenge is how do I be a good dad?
Yeah.
As well as try to push what we're trying to make an international brand and be on tour and all this. So even that, you know, even before this interview, I'm texting my wife and we're trying to work out some things of like how we can make life better for the boys, you know, in the midst of trying to make sure we can stay moving forward with this, you know, and man, as an indie band, that's a great question. I'm trying to think of the challenges for us.
I mean, because I think
it's.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I mean, like,
no, go ahead.
As far as like the industry is, you know, it's very shady.
Yeah.
Only few artists get to the Grammy show now. I mean,
yeah,
it's not even based on talent. It's based on a lot of politics, pretty much, you know, and you know, so much forth. I mean, as far as getting your plan together to be successful, you know, what are some of the challenges, I guess, to better rephrase that question, you know?
I would say the challenge may be, in a way, it's the positive on it too, not to like put a spin on it, but the challenge for us is just the sheer amount of work that has to be done. If you want to stay independent, like we work with an indie label, but it's kind of like a partnership thing and they're building their stuff too. So it's not like you signed with them and suddenly you're like, all right, you know, it's going crazy. But they're supporting us and they're partnering with us and we're moving forward. And maybe it's just that sheer amount of work where maybe it was easier back in the day when they had better systems and to go, because really the market has fragmented immensely, where you got so many pockets of things happening and people starting new little things, but nothing's the huge, like, oh, if you get these things, you blow up. But in a sense, that's the benefit too, because there's certain things, you know, So Far Sounds. Are you guys familiar with them at all?
Not me personally. Maybe someone on our staff.
Well, gotcha. Check them out because they're doing it's a great movement. It's like these secret shows that are popping up. They're in 340 cities around the world. It's these secret shows of anywhere from 40 to 500 people. But again, like not everyone's heard of it. So it's this fragmented little thing, but the people who know about it love it, you know, and I think it's easier to find those kind of things and get connected with those kind of things because of social media. Like for us, we have fans all around the world. We've gone to Qatar and back, and that's it. We've yet to tour Europe. yet to tour the South America, but we have fans in Italy. We have fans that started like a fan Twitter thing in Italy and the Philippines, several other countries I can't think of right now. And that is something that would be almost impossible 10 years ago, just because of the reach. And so like for us, we're like literally every morning for me, it's and every night, like when my wife falls asleep, I pop back on and I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm talking to fans every single day, and hearing about what they like, hearing about why they like the songs. You know, sometimes one time on Snapchat, they were helping me pick out red pants. You know, we were on tour to Houston. I was like, I'm Puerto Rican and my hips are big, so I can't find the right kind of pants, you know? And so yeah, I mean, those are things that could have never happened before, but you have to work harder at it.
Yeah.
And so I guess that is the challenge of it. But if you're willing to do that work, man, there's an immense amount of opportunity. You know, even for us, we met somebody through Periscope. They started following us on Twitter. We were on tour coming from Amarillo, Texas. We were on our way to somewhere in Arkansas, and our van broke down at like 6 or 7 o'clock at night in Oklahoma City. And we just tweeted out, hey, our van broke down. Anyone know any good mechanics? Next thing you know, I get a tweet from one of our fans, and she's like, hey, here's my husband's number. Give him a call. He thinks he can help. I'm on the phone with him. I tell him what's wrong. He goes, oh, I can fix that. I'm 30 minutes away. I'll come out. Wow. And no joke, at 9:30, we rolled into O'Reilly's, picked up the part like right before they closed, and he fixed it. Like he stayed till about midnight or 1 a.m. He brought his whole family, fixed our van for us in the Walmart parking lot, and we were back on the road. These are people we never met except for social media. And we're like, man, definitely whenever, you know, we get to play like an arena or something, we go pick them up in like a limo, because that was amazing. They were totally amazing. So
nice.
So yeah, I think there's opportunities in the challenges of it. But yeah, I think the days of, if there was a day, and I don't know if there was, but it seems like there is this concept, at least, that there was a day that, oh, if you got the right song and the right manager and the right this, they'll put you on everything and everyone will just have to listen to it because that's all they got. Like, it's only radio, and it's only that, 5 TV stations.
Yeah.
Where now it's like Netflix, right? You and I are talking about that. I don't have to watch. I haven't had cable probably damn near 10 years,
Yeah.
Because I don't need it.
Right.
Like I watch movies when I want to. I watch the movies I want to watch. And it's the same with music. It's people, radio, there's alternative stations we've met that are really good because they cultivate their following, their fans. Like there's a great station here in town, but on a whole, radio doesn't have the same power it used to. It's still even those niche little markets where they're cultivating something that's just boom right there. It's figuring out how to tap into that and provide value for them, So yeah.
That's interesting because that's like an ongoing conversation we have within our amongst staff members, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, like where the industry's headed, streaming. We had a staff member talk about streaming wars and things like that, and how the whole digital era is kind of driving music, and how you have complete ownership now. You don't even have to worry about owning your music. It's yours now. That's another positive,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the market has changed so much. In a sense, it's almost like the Wild Wild West in a way.
Exactly.
Where you have these powerhouse companies that they're still doing some good. There's some great artists that are still on some of those big labels. I just got to hear John Legend was on one of my favorite podcasts, Gary Vee. And, he's talking about being part of the major label kind of industry. But he even said the reality is that it's just a smaller thing. They have a lot of power, but the power is now more in the hands of the people, which is good and bad because now there's a million bands you're competing with. But that's why you got to focus. Why, at least for us, our focus is just trying to build real relationships with every fan that we can, and that's what social media has done for us. So
it's interesting. It's like kind of early America where you made music, you just traveled from town to town, and people you did get that more personal interaction with who you were connecting with. So, that's another positive. But here's the thing too. One of the things we brought up in our conversations was that one of our staff managers pointed out that she found an article pretty much talking about hip hop becoming like the like ultimate genre, where like it's like hard for indie bands to make a name for themselves in any other genre, because hip hop has this kind of characteristic where it can mold to any type of genre, so being a pure kind of indie band, like, I don't know if you guys kind of hash that out yet, but I mean, it's kind of hard being a purist, in a sense, right?
Well, for us, there's talks of collaboration for some of the things we're doing in the future. I've actually for years, I've had this dream of taking a full album, getting some DJs to remix it, and then bringing in rappers that we like. I actually just pitched a song to our label. The timing of it's not right, but I already had the rapper in mind. There's a rapper named Duncan Burnett. If you ever get a chance, check him out on Spotify's Duncan Burnett. But the dude is amazing. We just got to see him live at a festival here, and he's super socially conscious. He's trying to make a difference with what he's doing in his rap. Kind of that same thing we want. It's this belief for us that art can change the world. So whenever I meet or see an artist who's like, no, I want to change something for real, it's awesome. And we get excited about that. I think I trailed off. Or was I? Oh, yes. But yes, hip hop, I think the new Kendrick Lamar album, one of the conversations we have with a lot of fans is, what are you listening to? What inspires you? And a lot of times after we talk about that, they'll ask us. And I always say, recently, I've been saying, all I'm listening to nonstop is Kendrick Lamar's new album and the Lumineers. That's like, and that's super, like, completely two different genres. But there's just something in hip hop right now. You got Kendrick Lamar, Logic just dropped another album. Like, there's something happening that's hitting a chord with people that you're not finding in hardly any other music. And I think the bands that are successful are taking note of that. You look at 21 Pilots. It's not hip hop by any means, but you can hear hip hop influences in what they're doing and how they write, even how they perform. And honestly, it's funny. One of the best compliments we ever got as a band, we were in Chattanooga State and playing in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we were on our way to another show, and we were talking to one of the advisors. And he's like, what are you guys going to do? You got a day off. And we're like, oh, we just go out and hit the streets, and we start performing in the streets and meet people. He's like, you guys are like straight gangsta, is what he said. And we started laughing. But we realized the more we're on the road, the more we're at festivals, we're connecting with a lot of hip hop artists, because even from a business standpoint in the music industry, hip hop artists, they're in your face. Like, you go to Austin during South by Southwest, it was like all the hip hop artists were out there meeting people. We felt like a lot of indie bands were like trying to, like, we're just going to sit in the club and be cool, smoke our cigarettes, whatever. The hip hop artists were like, no, we're building something. And the only way you can do it is you got to get it out to the people. And there's just an immense amount of hustle. And I think that, honestly, that communicates through hip hop, at least when you, like, the guys that I'm listening to, like especially Logic, Kendrick Lamar. I really love Macklemore. I know some people who are really into hip hop don't like him, but I love Macklemore. I think they're saying something, which in the indie world sometimes, and I'm critiquing even myself, because this is some of our conversation as we write more songs. I just wrote another round. I wrote about 90 songs again for this next album. I'm getting ready to go into another round of writing, hopefully about that much. But the question is like, what are we really saying? What do we really want to communicate? What do we want to see, change even in the world around us? And I think that's what we see in hip hop as well, that maybe, in my opinion, indie bands need to start learning from. It's what we're starting to learn from. Like for me, every day, like today, I listened to the Kendrick Lamar album twice in the midst of, running my kids around, getting crickets for their lizards, and trying to make phone calls for booking shows and trying to get some songs charted and talking to the label. It's like somehow I still made time to listen to that album twice and all of that because I can't stop listening to it.
Do you feel like that, however, is like a disadvantage to the genre? It's kind of a disrespect to any particular genre, because they do what they do. Hip hop does what it does. Why can't they just do what they do and they're good at it? If that makes any sense. Why do they have to kind of incorporate this other genre. Like indie bands
Yeah.
to me, like I like Forever Lesbians is a band that I like.
I haven't heard of them. I have to check them out.
Yeah, they're pretty dope. They have like a really garage, like just raw sound. And they don't have any hip hop elements. It's like, and I appreciate that. I don't want to hear like a fusion.
I got you. So more of the purest kind of sense.
When I listen to a certain genre, that's what I'm listening for, that sound, you know. I feel like that's harming it though. However, if everyone's like, oh, well, you know, maybe we would be better off if we took some pointers from this rapper, for instance, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think it probably really comes down to what's authentic. Because at the end of the day, if it's not you, like for me, if I try to rap, it's just bad. Like I love rap, but if I'm going to go out there and rap, it's not great. Yeah. But like for us, it's like I love the hip hop beats. I love the angst of the lyrics and the flow of the lyrics. So for me, it's like, okay, I want to learn from that. And then how do I adapt it to who I am? I think when people pander and they're like, oh, hip hop's hot right now, we're a rock band, let's do some hip hoppy rap or something. You know, I think people over time, people see through that. So I think it has to be authentic. And there's people out there who can't stand hip hop at all. So no doubt they're going to make some more purest form indie or Americana or whatever it is, right? Because like that's probably one thing where Americana to be influenced by hip hop is super strange, even though you got like Gangsta Grass who's doing great with it. But again, my guess is for them, it's authentic because they've been doing so well with it. I think when you see people not be authentic, and the only other part is like, if that's what you like for example, like the super artsy, super way out there, like Radiohead on crack kind of music.
Yeah.
I appreciate some of that stuff, like super ethereal art rock, but it's not like the thing I gravitate to. But I know people who love it, love it, love it. And I know people who that's all they want to play. I think in this industry, it's really hard to make mass success with that kind of music. So I think that's when the artist has to ask themselves, am I being authentic? Okay, how do I build my audience? And I just know that it may never get, at least in this current market, may never get mass appeal. And I just need to be okay with that. Yeah. And I think that's where artists struggle too, because we want the success and the fame, but at some point, if it's not authentic and you're not riding that wave or whatever it is, you just got to make a choice there, you know. And for us, we're trying to create. I'm lucky because I love pop music, so I'm lucky because I love hip hop, and so right now all those things are kind of coming like to a head. But again, like I said, I'm not going to go rap because it's hot because no one wants to hear it. I'll let Kendrick Lamar and Logic do their thing. I'll just get influenced by it and see how that comes out through a guitar and some synth and some loops and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know if I feel like I meandered through all that, but I don't know if that made
it makes perfect sense. Because, I mean, that is about when I actually thought about that, when that article was brought to my attention, it was like, but that kind of sucks because it's like, you know, every like music is it vibrates with different people. Like that sucks if one genre is just dominating everything.
Yeah.
You know, and it sucks that certain, you know, like you said, indie bands need to take a pointer where maybe they can take certain points from hip hop to, you know, but that sucks in a way because it's kind of like, you know.
Yeah. Well, and that's true in the sense of from a purist form, but I mean, this is an age-old debate. I mean, this was back in the day. Miles Davis was pissed off when bebop started happening, and it wasn't true jazz. Next thing you know, Miles Davis, you know, finds his way doing bebop, and it kind of won him over. When, you know, even in the jazz world, we're talking about, you know, Kansas City, like some of these guys, Ornette Coleman, and he was like super avant-garde jazz, and it wasn't true to the big band stuff. So the big band people are angry because he's pushing the limits and playing notes that should never be in that key, but somehow it sounded great. I think it's all that part of. I think there are people who there will be people who love the pure form, but there's always going to be people who just want to continue to grow whatever that art form is. I think at the end of the day, it's about being content with who you are as an artist or as a fan, and just knowing, all right, I like this, and not everyone does right now. Or I'm playing this, and not everyone's into it, but I got my fans who love it. And so I'm just going to serve my fans, you know. I even think it was Bob Dylan, you know, the moment he walked out on stage with electric guitar, people were ready to riot because he built a fan base on his acoustic, you know, like Billy Guthrie kind of thing. Here he is, an electric guitar. They're like, I'm out, I'm done, you know. But he turned it around, obviously.
Wow.
So,
no,
yeah.
I think your comment is very much appreciated. I mean, like we said, actually, one of the management staff members stated that your band is actually the first we've interviewed like this type of band. So,
really? Okay,
yeah.
that's cool. What kind of stuff are you guys typically interviewing then?
We're really trying, like I said, I mean, in this age of I say purity, trying to maintain purity rather. We generally focus more on hip hop, pop, and you know, we really just want to get more bands and hear what they have to say. Because, like I said, I feel like that. Me personally, I feel like that's a dying genre. You know, based on the conversation we just had, kind of proves that too. You know, it's like you know, kind of have to. But no, so your comments are greatly appreciated. Now, my question is, you guys came right off this EP, and you already mentioned you're already almost finished with another project.
Yeah, our mantra really is this idea of hustle. We talk about hustling. Like the moment we were done recording this EP last April, I went back into another round of writing on my own. And through that, probably from May till, I would say, May of 2016 to February, I wrote about 90 songs, turned those in to the label. And then from there, we actually sifted that down to about 9. And we're not even sure if these 9 are going to make it on the next album. It's just right now that's where we're at because I'm already starting another round of writing. Wow. We're really just trying to find the best music we can get to our fans at that point. So yeah, like, and the reality is too, like, we did this demo. We do a lot of prep work, just trying to demo it out. Do you like this drum sound? Do you like this vibe? Moving the songs around, moving the lyrics, like playing. We're still working out lyrics and all this because we want as best as we could possibly do. And then we won't even begin recording it, actually laying down the real tracks, real guitars, drums, and everything until probably August this year. And so from then, who knows when we'll actually release it? No doubt it will be at minimum early 2018, if not further. And at least in my opinion, the only way to do that is to just be way ahead of it. So we're already thinking next project after this project of where is it, as far as the storytelling goes, like where do we want that to go? Because this project's kind of got, like I said, it goes a little darker now. We're diving into the question of faith and lack of faith, because I was kind of telling you my story of where I've gone with that. We're diving into a little bit deeper, like intensity relationships, like, and part of that's part of my story where, like I said, I'm on the road, and I have a wife and 4 kids, and I'm traveling in New York City at 2 a.m. and, you know, hearing texts about what's happening back home, and I haven't been home in a week and a half. And it's like all that adds a new tension that wasn't there when we wrote the EP that's out right now. So.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, and also, you know, okay, so I guess you kind of answered it. Being on the road headed to New York City at 2 a.m. or anywhere at 2 a.m. is crazy. But, I mean, even as a bachelor or whatever, but so what's your writing process? 'Cause I was going to ask you, were talking about your busy schedule earlier. You're trying to do all these family activities and listen to current music. How do you find time to actually put pen to paper? Like, how does that work out for you?
It shifts when I'm at home. It's really funny because the producer, we were all laughing in the studio the last time we were there. We just came back like a month and a half ago, I think, from the studio. And he was laughing. He's like, I can always tell when you're on the road writing and when you're at home writing. He's like, when you're on the road writing, I hear Daniel and Ben talking and a podcast going in the road. He's like, and then when I know you're at home, it's like you can literally, in all these songs, it'll be really funny. Like, I should release the actual demo of I Need a Light, because in the back you got the super emotional dark song, you hear the kids like screaming. They're like, hey, that's pretty cool, that's my toy. So yeah, like when I wrote for that album, I actually sat at my kitchen table while my kids were playing, because that's the only chance I had, and I would block out 2 or 3 hours, and I'm like, boom, I'm gonna write this, boom, I'm gonna write this. And I'm very disciplined. Not everyone works that way, but for me, what works best is like, sometimes I do little exercises of like, I'll put out 4 hours, I'll block out 4 hours, and I force myself to write 1 song each hour. And then just like, boom, drop it in the hopper, if you will. I throw it in a Google file doc, and I don't even look at it for another 2 months, and I would come back and then, okay, how can we fix it? You know, because it's a rough draft. You know, when I say 60 songs or 90 songs, they're all rough drafts. It's not like full demos or anything. But on the road, it's basically me in the back of the van. I'll spend, you know, sometimes we're on the road at least a minimum of 6 hours in between cities. Some days, like the worst one was we were in Delaware and we had to be in a day and a half. We had to be in Arkansas. It was an 18-hour drive straight through. But like I just sit with my iPad and tracking out stuff and working on stuff. When we went overseas to Qatar, I wrote 15 songs on the flights there and back, and just full track. That since I was in the plane and I had, you know, hours and hours, I just sat with the iPad. I did full tracks, full drums, everything.
Wow.
Again, it's not what you guys hear. It's just these are the ideas, and then I bring it to the band and rip it all up, rearrange it, and then they put their thoughts into it.
So are you the sole writer, like as far as like lyrics go, or any?
For the most part, definitely on this EP and the next project, it looks like I'll be the main bulk of the writing. There's some songs that I think our last bass player, he had 2 songs with writing cred. Our drummer even had 1 song with some writing cred on it, where they contributed into it. I think the new bass player we just hired, he fronts his own group as well. He writes his own tunes. In fact, he's starting to throw some of his songs in the pot as well, just for ideas and going. So I have a feeling as we grow as a band, we'll probably start seeing more co-writing and maybe even some where like, oh, if Ben brought this song, we got to do it. This is definitely a run with the song. Let's do it. I think that'll grow over time, but for the most part, I'm doing a lot of the heavy lifting as far as that goes currently.
Okay, cool. Well, that's okay. I think the fans would appreciate a raw demo, like EP.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the way you were describing that one song with the kids in the back, and it's kind of like a sound. That sounds like twisted, but like cool, like at the same time. So I think people would like that.
It would be kind of funny. It would be interesting to kind of see what people's thoughts are, because and to hear it. So like, I Need a Light was a little faster than what's on the album. It was all acoustic guitar. Mm-hmm. You know, as it started, some of these songs started as just piano and a voice, and next thing you know, it turns into this big thing. So it's one day in the van, we actually went through all the process. Like, I think I Need a Light had 7 different versions before we finally recorded the one you guys are hearing. And we just went through each version in the van, and we're like, wow, that's crazy. And you could see where, you know, we were reaching and grabbing for certain things, trying to figure out. And then finally, when you feel it land on that last one, we're like, oh man, you could hear we wanted to get there, but we just couldn't yet. You know, so it might be a fun thing one day to put out some of those things, especially, I mean, people can, that's where it's interesting when I meet people who are in bands who are single and they're like, I don't have any time. I'm like, bro, I got 4 kids, I got a house, I got a wife. And I like, you figure out where to make time. Like I said, sometimes it's like midnight. My wife just fell asleep after watching Z Nation with me or something. And that's when I'm connecting with fans until I fall asleep with the phone in my hand. You know, it's not necessarily ideal, but you just gotta, if you really want to do it, you gotta figure it out, you know?
Well, that's one of my, so you kind of talked about, like, that's an interesting point to kind of dive into this next question, because you know, you mentioned like the whole music industry is a wild, wild west right now. Yeah. And so we lined up all the positives. You're like, well, the good part is, you know, you have a lot of ownership. You have full control. You know, autonomy over your writing. But what's your greatest fear? I mean, you know, as an indie band or as an artist, you know?
You know, I think for me personally, my greatest fear, which kind of drives me, is not being able to continue to do this, because at some point everyone has to make that call. You know, you put so much money and so much time and so much energy. The people around you have to sacrifice so much. My family sacrificed a lot. My wife sacrifices a lot. I think the fear is one day being like, I can't keep going. Not necessarily because you're tired. It's just, you know, the costs have become all around you too great. And maybe there's other indie bands that can relate to that. Because even if you're single, you know, a friend of mine was touring for years, single guy, but the cost just became too much. He was on the road for like 10 years. And no matter what your situation is, that can be really hard for a lot of people. And I think that if we're talking about like the downsides of it, because it's such the wild, wild west, it is all on you.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're going to make it, you have to cultivate your own following. You have to cultivate and invest in the fans. You have to build this business, which a lot of artists struggle with the business thing too. I'm an entrepreneur. I've like owned other businesses. I used to own a roofing company, you know, those kind of things. So I'm weird. I'm like got both sides, you know, going. In fact, there's some days I have to pretend I switch the business side off so I can just write, because I don't like the preliminary writing being influenced by the business side. I just want to write whatever it is. And if it never makes it to the light of day, it's fine, but I just want to write that. And then some days I have to turn off the artist brain and be like, okay, it's about business and I can't be emotional right now because we got to get X, Y, Z done, you know, whatever it is. Yeah. So I feel like I meandered off of that too, but yeah, I think the fear is, at least for me, is like, man, there'll come a day where it's like we can't keep going. That day is not anywhere near for us, but the fear is it'll never get there. And the fear is like, if I would have done this or done that or done this, would it have been better, would it have been bigger? Did I make mistakes along the way? I don't want to drop those balls, you know, because in my opinion, I feel like at least for me personally, my personal why behind it is I want to create a better future for my family, for my kids. And I know to really grow something in the music industry, and just not even the money of it, part of it is that, but then the relationships you have, it's a different world at that point. It opens up opportunities. You know, we talk about the concept of privilege, and unfortunately, privilege is a very true thing. I grew up in, you know, like kind of a lower middle class home. It wasn't bad by any means, but I was a single mom home. You know, my mom was a single mother raising us. I remember getting groceries dropped off on our front doorstep because there's these good Samaritans out there wanting to help us. Luckily our kids don't have to live like that, but I feel like I've had to claw and scrape personally for everything. I would love for them to just kind of have some bigger open doors as they grow, you know, and so for me, there's a lot riding on this. There's the music aspect, and then there's the future that I see for my family on it. And yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. No one's ever really asked that. So I'm just kind of spewing out whatever is right in my mind and my heart. So
I've just seen so many indie artists across various types of music. It's just that they put so much forth. They do so much. Oh wow, that last album was great. That last single was great, and they just never. Yep. It feels like they never receive the recognition. And I've seen so many artists where they just stop kind of making music, and you'll hit them up like, oh, yep. You're like that lone fan. It's like, hey, I like this last album, and they just kind of like they've given up on it. I don't want to say giving up, but they don't have any plans of like really putting any more energy into it. It's not lucrative. I mean, you have to eat off of that at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's not me. Like, in my opinion, that's all on the artist to really build that. And if at the end of the day, if you're creating something that connects with people and you work your ass off to get it to them, that it will grow. And so at the end of the day, if it still doesn't catch, maybe you just didn't have what it takes. Maybe I don't have what it takes, but I sure as hell am going to go out there and find out, you know? I think some people there's a producer I'm friends with, and he was kind of almost like shaming fans for not supporting artists. And that's where I was like, at least where I come from, I'm like, nah, man, it's not the fans' fault, because there's people who are building great bands. We have friends in a band called the New Schematics, another great band to check out. They're out of Nashville. They're touring all over the place, and they're really growing something awesome. And it's because they're just really good, and they're hustling. They're on the road all the time. They're connecting with new fans. And it's like, if you really want to make it, there's opportunity out there. And if if you tried that and they still don't like it, then maybe, I mean, it would be hard to accept that right now for me personally, but maybe it just wasn't good enough for them. So like I said, I'm gonna try as hard to find out. So
yeah, I mean, I think you guys are on the right path. Like we get a lot of artists who hit us up like, hey, check this out, and the sound, it just sounds horrible. But you guys, I'm just gonna be honest. I mean,
yeah, we did that once. We had a full length album that I cut a lot of corners on, and even the producer was like, "Don't do it, don't do it." And I was like, "We're gonna do it the way I want to do it," and I was wrong. And I vowed to never do that again, because he was like, I wanted a full length album. We have since killed that album. Like, you can't really find it anywhere. In fact, someone was like, hey, I just heard that track. And I was like, where'd you hear that from? Where did you hear that? But yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way. I'm a bullheaded person and a strong-minded individual. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it bites me in the ass. And it did on that project, because I never wanted to share it with anyone, because just the quality wasn't great. And the producer kept telling me, he's like, do like 2 or 3 songs and pour all your money into that and make it the best you can. I was like, no, I want to do a full length. It's going to be great. And so, yeah, we learned that lesson. We definitely did. We learned that one the hard way. And I won't do it again. Even down to mastering, we cut corners on mastering. We cut corners on engineering as far as financially. And so that's when we did this. It was like, man, I think one of the guys who mastered I Need a Light, he's worked with like Blondie and Paramore and like some of, like, so we were like, we're going to find the cats who can really help. We felt like we had a great offering, but all that stuff, you can have a great song, but your miking, your recording, your engineering, your mixing, your mastering, all those things stand in the way of that good song getting out into someone's ears. And if you don't have the right people there, oh man. So yeah, that's a thing of the past for us. We are not cutting corners when it comes to that. That's for sure.
Wow, that's crazy. One of the things I wanted to know, because you mentioned the next EP is going to go into like a darker, well, pardon me, trying to like,
yeah, at least
my water. Like,
you're like,
the new EP is going to be a lot darker.
Yeah. It looks like it's gravitating that way. A lot of the songs, at least we have some songs demoed out, and those on a whole have some darker ones. There's one that's kind of got this hope-filled piece to it, but a lot of them really dive into that. Anyways, I'll let you.
Oh no. The only question I had was, how did the inspirational tone? Because this makes me feel good. Like I said, like when I listened to it, literally I could feel like it just literally kind of slightly boosted my mood. Not like saying I was down. Like,
yeah.
But where did that come from? Like, where did that?
Well, and I think, at least, again, for me as an artist, trying to communicate, like there's a guy named Neil Gaiman. He's a writer and he writes books and children's books and stuff, as well as novels. The Graveyard Book is one of his big books. It's amazing. Anyways, at a commencement speech, he was talking to a bunch of liberal arts students, and he said, as a creative, the moment that you begin to feel like you're standing in front of a huge crowd, incredibly naked, that's the moment where you're probably just starting to create your best work. And it's that. Honestly, it's that quote that has been driving me. I heard him say this probably 6-7 years ago. I've been writing. I led a band previously and all that kind of stuff. But I heard him say that 6 or 7 years ago on a podcast, and that has haunted me and challenged me and encouraged me all along the way. Because there's times I don't want to share it. But again, even when we stopped in hanging out with our producer last November, I was in the middle of writing, and I shared that quote with him and just said, I'm trying to figure out how I can go deeper with these songs, because even like I Need a Light is a song that people are messaging us constantly now. And when I actually talk about, when we're performing, I talk about my depression and I talk about some of my struggles with that. We have every show now, we have like somebody coming up in tears saying like, that's I deal with those same things. You know, we played for like 500 high school students in Arkansas at this thing. And we had a bunch of teens coming up to us just like crying. And they're like, this is something I've been dealing with. And, you know, and then there was even one kid who was like, hey, man, he's like, I don't know what that's like, but I'm so glad you fought it and keep going. It's like the 60-year-old kid. I was like, that's awesome, man. Like, you know, because no, not everyone does, but even him, it hit him enough to where he's like, I'm encouraged by what you did. Keep doing it. That's awesome. So it's kind of opened my eyes to see the deeper I go, potentially the better I can connect with other people, the better I can help other people. And I think that's where some of these songs go. And sometimes, at least I know, especially it was my early 20s is when the depression was at its heaviest, is when I really had to confront it, start fighting through it. The super happy stuff didn't even really connect with me, you know, as the songs that were kind of broken and dark that I gravitated towards, because it's almost like they wrapped a little blanket around me and said, hey, it's going to be okay. Other people understand how you feel. You can get through this. You know, even think about Chris Cornell, you know, we just found out today.
I was going to ask you about the whole get around the Soundgarden, but
watching that today, and like I remember times thinking people around me and myself would be better off if I were dead. And to realize that even this guy who, you know, at least in my world, he's got everything. He's got a band that they wouldn't have to put out another song in the rest of their lives, and they could have just kept playing. Like, even that wasn't good enough for him. He was struggling with things that we have no idea, unfortunately may never know. So anyways, like with my art, I guess I'm just trying to go there for my own self. In a sense, it's kind of like my sanity. And then hopefully maybe it can even help other people through their sanity.
I think that's one of the most powerful moments in the interview. I totally get that. Like every song I listen to, like I said, it's like you get that sense of encouragement. It's a rawness of emotion.
Yeah.
Without even listening to the lyrics closely, just the sound is like just grabs you, you know.
Yeah.
I think you guys should collaborate with Kid Cudi one day. Like that'd
be awesome. Yeah, there's some stuff on that. There's actually a song on here. My producer's probably gonna be so pissed because he's like, "Don't talk about the new album that we haven't even recorded yet, Miguel." I'm excited already. It is funny because we're like currently pushing this album still, which I think is good. We're very proud of it, and they're very authentic to where we were. And but yeah, like there's some stuff where I'm hoping if we can get the right people, get some hip hop stuff in there too. As far as like a rapper, not to be hip hop, if you will. Back to whole, you don't want me to rap. So
and it's so interesting. Like I appreciate you putting yourself out there with your personal struggles, because mental illness has been a long or big issue in the music industry. You know, I think artists, because you are actually vibrating differently from everybody else, you're naturally gonna experience that. That's like the part that comes along with the gift, you know. Like I was saying,
it is, yeah.
It is. I mean, 'cause there's no way to write good music if, like you said, when like with your entrepreneurship, you have to separate that when you're writing. You know, that's like a different kind of gift. You're more analytical as opposed to being creative. So there's a certain way of putting yourself out there. But I really do. I think this is an issue, and I'm glad that you touched on it with like what I said, like with Kid Cudi and his struggles with suicide recently. There's a whole string of artists going back to Amy Winehouse in recent years, and Cobain and all these artists. So I'm glad that you you're not just being like, for instance, we talked about Chris, right? But you're one who's like overcoming that. It seems like oftentimes artists will succumb to that.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just like, wait, you know, there's people who need me, I can overcome this. So I think that you stand out as an artist for coming out and saying that, you know, people can be stronger than that. So
yeah. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's where I even think of like Macklemore talks a lot in his albums about his struggles with addiction. And even on The Heist, there's a song where he talks about being in the back of the club after he relapsed and someone coming up to him and telling him that, hey, your songs helped me break my addiction. And here he was in the back of this club. He had just gotten high, like for the first time, like 2 years.
Wow.
And but to hear him be so still open about that, and that yet encourages probably yet another stage of his own fans who are like, yeah, I remember relapsing, but you did too, and you made it through, so I can make it through. And so in a sense, I hope that's what, mine's not drugs, it's depression, but I hope it can help people through that.
Oh yeah, I definitely think it will, and we're glad that come back anytime. Please, like I said, it's nice that you're open. You're not a superficial artist, and I can see why you have such a huge fan base already.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. It's been fun. These are great questions, man. I love it. We actually carry in our back pocket, if you will, secret questions that we just dive into in case we ever get in an interview where someone's like, I don't know what to ask you, because that happens from time to time. So this is great, man. This is super fun.
Excellent, man. Thank you for your support too. And did you have anything you want to let your fans know? Because I'm sure they're tuning in to get to know more about you. I tried to Google you guys earlier. Some great things came up, but not anything in depth. So I'm sure fans would love to hear this. Is there anything that personally you would want your fans to know that you usually don't share? Or
I think not necessarily. I think as time comes on, there'll be more things. Even like I mentioned, the struggle of faith and not having faith. Like because I've had this progression of, like I said, where I was a paid minister and now I'm an atheist, which is just two completely different worlds. I think those are topics that will probably come out more in songs. In that sense, we don't necessarily want to be like soapboxy about a lot of stuff, but just more be like, this is who we are, And for example, like Daniel, our drummer, he's just a super upbeat dude. I don't know if he's ever experienced depression in his life, because he's just like, what's up, man? He's got his dreads and he's like, hey, yeah, in his little skinny jeans and everything. And like for him, that's why like we don't necessarily want to be a band with a soapbox on anything in particular, but we want to be able to tell our stories collectively and then individually as well. So I guess I would say if you want to know more, just make sure you guys are following us. Because we're on it every day: Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook. It's all at Run With It Band. So at Run With It Band on any of that. Message us, ask us questions. We definitely respond. We work hard to respond to everybody because we want to connect with everyone who's digging what we're doing. If you follow the snaps, Daniel's in charge, of our Snapchat, and he kills it. It's super fun, like all the time, especially when we're on the road. But yeah, that's where a lot of our storytelling happens in that world. So
interesting. Thank you so much. He's really a cool dude, guys. Like, for real. Like,
thanks, man.
Like, it's not often you find. I talk to a lot of artists who are like D-bags, if you will.
We try not to be. I'm sure I have my moments, but we definitely try not to be.
That's another thing we've talked about is like, you guys are so humble. Like I said, I guess it's part of you just putting your personal experience out there. But a lot of artists, they're not even big yet, and they won't even talk to you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. There's this thing. We have this mantra, and we say to each other all the time, and we say, you haven't earned it yet. And it's what we say to each other when we're on the road. And it comes from when we opened for a guy named Jake Clemens several years back, and he tours with the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen. And he's got a solo project that's his own, so he tours out on his own as well. And so here's this guy who plays for 50,000 people at some point because he's with Bruce Springsteen. He's playing this small little club in Kansas City with us. It was like 3 years ago when we were just trying to get out there, Anyways, afterwards, he's talking to our bass player at the time. His name was Clint. And Clint finally was like, okay, I got to ask you, what's it like, working with Bruce Springsteen, and how does he feel about you doing your own music? And Jake Clemens said, well, here's the thing. I was backstage. We're getting ready to go out and play. And Bruce Springsteen's sitting there. And he walks over and he goes, I guess he heard I was getting ready to do my own project. And so he came up to me and just said, he looked at me, he goes, hey, you know what I tell myself every single night when I go out on stage? And Jake was like, what? He goes, I tell myself I haven't earned it yet. Mm. And then he said Bruce Springsteen looked at him and said, just remember, you haven't earned it yet. And he turned around and walked off. And it was like, damn. If Bruce Springsteen, wow, like one of the like iconic people, is still telling himself when he walks out in front of 50,000 people, you haven't earned it yet. Wow. And really, when you see him perform, you know, he does 3 hours straight, nonstop, jumping around stage, incredible show, music. He's trying to earn it for them that night, and he goes back and tries to do it again. Wow. That, like, for us, that was just like that moment, like, okay. And what was really funny is we met those jerks, those D-bag other artists who are too cool for school. You know, like, oh, we don't have time for you guys. And we're like, really? Because there's like 10 people here, and like, come on.
Most of these guys broke 50K followers on Instagram.
But. Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? It's like we're all in the same boat, man. Like, come on. And here's this guy who, Jake Clemens, he's, like I said, he plays with Bruce Springsteen, toured with him for years. Here he is at this club. He stayed and watched our show. Afterwards, he hung out and talked with us. He came and just super chill and super humble. And for us, that was just a huge lesson. It was like, okay, the cats who are really doing something, that's what they're like. And honestly, as we've gone, people who we've met who are like legit. In fact, so you remember oh, dang it, what's his name? Cupid Shuffle?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Damn, what's the other one? Not Mambo number 5. There's like another dance.
The Cleveland Shuffle?
Cha-cha slide?
Oh, yeah, okay.
One of those, I don't know. I'm blanking on it because I don't really listen to that kind of stuff.
I don't do line dance either, so.
yeah, right. Anyways, we met that guy, and we were doing a showcase with him. And this guy had like one of the biggest dance hits in the world, right? And Daniel actually DJ'd for him for his showcase, which was pretty cool, our drummer. And he sat there and met every single human being who came up to him that night and talked to every single one of them. And then we just said bye, and we were walking off, like he'll probably want to go back to his hotel. And he like grabbed us. He's like, I got to get you on my Snapchat. Let's talk. And was super nice. And again, here's this iconic guy who is just incredibly humble. So yeah, huge lessons along the way that we're learning. So
with that type of mentality, you're bound to really make some waves eventually. So
well, thanks, man. We'll keep working on it.
No doubt. And also, you guys can tune us because this broadcast is going to be on at Louder Than Music podcast. You can follow our page to keep up with the latest episodes, and also subscribe to us on iTunes there. Also, check out our website, IamTheIndustry.com. And we're talking to Miguel, lead vocalist with, Run With It, an up-and-coming band.
Awesome, man.
And before we go, definitely, we always like to have artists give us the drop, as we call it. So if you can just say your name and your band and say you're tuning in to IamTheIndustry.com, we'll be all set.
All right. What's up? This is Miguel from Run With It, and you are turning in. Can we try that again?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I Am The Industry. I don't want to mess up the name, too.
Yeah, IamTheIndustry.com or I Am The Industry.
Okay. IamTheIndustry.com. What is up? This is Miguel from Run With It, and you guys are tuning in to IamTheIndustry.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Miguel. You've been great, man. I could feel your energies are very positive. I can see why fans just gravitate towards you, so definitely.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's great. Let us know if you ever want to have us back, and maybe even then we can get all 3 guys, and then it just gets crazy because we're all extremely different, yet we get along really well. So it makes things very fun.
We're a platform for indie artists. We like to build close relationships